Allow me to introduce our speaker for the first session after the lunch. So Michał, whom you may know as our host and also speaker of yesterday, is a Scrum Master, especially helping the teams to knowing where to get and how to get there in an efficient way, usually by asking blunt and direct questions spiced with a lot of humor. Today, he will talk about why commitments have such a bad press in complex or agile world, and if you have to, how to commit in a smart way. Personally, he has a soft spot for cats, loves trying out the new electric guitars, and getting immersed in the role-playing games, both face-to-face one, but also PlayStation ones. Welcome, Michał, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Veronica. Thank you. Thank you, everybody who joined. So yes, today we will be, I will be talking about one of the things that that have been changing very slowly, especially if you see the government and public safety business. So, you know, the Agile people, we introduced new frameworks, we found new creative ways to retrospect, new metrics, sometimes even new ways of working because of the pandemic situation. But what about commitments? And based on my experience, the way we do contractual obligations sometimes becomes number one impediment making progress with our Agile approach. So in this presentation, I would like to share a few thoughts, a few observations, and a few first steps that I'm planning to make in my environment to change the commitment culture a little bit. So bear with me. If you already got bored and you feel sick and basically you want to switch to Facebook and Instagram account, I have an alternative title. This presentation will be about why promises in IT basically suck and what you can do and what I can do to make them a bit better. Again, if you don't like big words. The pictures are real. So, you know, here I am in this multi-team planning, multi-sprint planning kind of ceremony. It's fairly similar in a few competitive frameworks like SAFe. So typically it's like 1 or 2 day activity where people try to conclude the whole planning with a plan, that is with what's committed and what's not committed. So again, I've been there a couple times, either as a facilitator or consultant, and actually this presentation is based on what I thought when sitting there. And in the end of each of a ceremony of planning, there is something I call the highlight of the show. In Polish, I would say gwóźdź programu. But I don't want to translate it directly. So the highlight of the show. What's this highlight of the show? You know it. The highlight of the show is what I call the ritual of commitment. And I see this every time. What is this? So after 2 days of multi-team planning where people try to do some kind of Sudoku with their work items, trying to fit them into sprint grid, trying to line them up and make a plan. The management just can't wait, right? All the management is just waiting for the conclusion of the day, right? They look like this. And when the planning is over, the management sits and listens to a long list of committed and uncommitted stuff. You can think about committed being the green one here and uncommitted being the red one. So we draw a line in our plan, and we call what's left committed and what's on the right uncommitted. The management occasionally asks some questions, like, okay, what is this work item, or when it's going to get done? And then the planning is over. And then we meet in a month or 2 or 3 months, like we did in SAFE. And the result is this. So the same stakeholders now look angry, or at least disappointed on Teams, and they ask what happened. So here's what happened. Something has been delivered, something has not been delivered, and something was half-baked delivered or almost delivered. And often there is really no correlation with the committed or uncommitted zones in the plan. So you can see that some things that were completed, they are all over the place, and some of the red sticky notes, they are also all over the place. If it doesn't happen in your team, you're lucky. However, in my context, it happened quite a few times. And I always wanted to change this ritual, this mechanical stuff that happens in the end of the planning, because I always thought something is wrong with that kind of committing, especially that in reality, it turns out not to be very much effective. And if you're still with me, we may try to make a little survey on Zoom. I'll try to launch it. Can you see it? The question is, there's only one question. It's fairly simple. Have you heard about Cyberpunk? So a few minutes to think. Yeah, okay, it seems like 90. Okay, yeah, so it seems like 93% of the audience, or 90-ish kind of percent, did hear about Cyberpunk. That's good. We can finish the polling right now. The human history, even outside my environment.
Could you show the survey results on the screen?
I can, yeah, sure. These?
Yes.
Okay, because okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, so seems like 92% of the people being here in the meeting somehow heard about Cyberpunk. This is great because it will make my presentation a little bit easier.
No.
Can you see it?
No.
You can't see it?
No.
Okay, so maybe instead of me showing it, let me repeat it. 92% of the people said yes. I think that's maybe that's enough for now. Can you still see the slides?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so human history, based on a few examples that I'm going to show to you, shows how much we suck managing commitments in IT world. And I asked you about Cyberpunk because I wanted to use this example. So Cyberpunk, and I'm going to simplify a lot here. So Cyberpunk has been in work in progress state for almost 10 years. People argue if it was like 6 or 4 or when they really started developing. But the fact is that the first announcements were like 9 years ago. And up to yesterday, it has received 7 patches within the first 4 months. And the biggest patch that they issued like a month ago, I copied and pasted release notes to a Word document, and the Word document was 27 pages long. So they fixed over 500 defects with the 7th patch in a row. At the very bottom of the screen, you can see how much stock price went down, and basically what kind of defects there are, like ugly faces or flying cars, in exchange for a lot of undelivered content that they promised. And there is a lot of debate in the internet what the root cause of this failure was. However, certainly one of the reasons why this commitment was failed was the management pressure to deliver this game to Christmas. Last Christmas, I gave you my heart. Another example that I have is not funny anymore. It's a recent history of Boeing and their 737 MAX machine that was supposed to compete with Airbus aircrafts. And as a result of a software fault related to a MCAS system, MCAS was a software system for stabilizing the pitch and the flight of the plane in flight. One after another, Boeing 737 MAX killed 346 people in 2 catastrophes, one after another. So they grounded 100 of the machines, resulting in significant financial loss and reputation loss. And when they did some investigation, it turned out that Boeing was cutting costs on crew trainings, and basically one of the reasons why this failure occurred was management pressure to deliver it before the competitor. That's a fact. I will personally never fly this plane, so I will always check what is it that I'm entering on board. And so you can find a lot of examples like these. I personally like this picture, and I use it often, so I apologize everyone who has seen it. Fixed commitments may result, and often do result, in desperate attempts to basically finish on time, sometimes compromising quality, compromising functionality. And it's so frequent, actually, that I call it commitment culture. So it's no longer an accident or an exception. I think it's in general the culture of handling commitments, like it or not. So it seems like many companies may have problems with commitments. So before we go further, I would like to elaborate a little bit on what I call commitment and what I call culture. We could probably have a separate presentation about culture, because there are so many contradictory definitions all over. The fact is that culture is abstract, unlike, I don't know, a horse or elephant. And you can hear that, for example, I don't know, if one employee is leaving the company and the culture changed, then it was not culture at all. You can hear from Mr. Leffingwell that culture changes last, not first. However, somebody else says that if you get the culture right, most of the other stuff will just take care of itself, and so on and so forth. So for the purpose of this presentation, a culture is basically a way of doing things in a company or corporate environment. And it has at least 4 traits or features or characteristics, if you will. It's persistent, that is, it's hard to change. It's widespread, that is, the culture affects many people in the company. It's long-lived, that means it's been there for a while. It didn't happen yesterday. And lastly, it's emergent, that is, it was not introduced by some plan or by some button, it just showed up as a byproduct of us doing multiple things. And what about commitments? Commitment is a word that is used very, very often in the business. So what is this commitment? Actually, long before human beings created IT companies, the commitments existed. Humanity had been using commitments in their daily life. We still do. So I buy an envelope, I buy a stamp, I write a correct address, and the post office commits to delivering my letter within 3 business days. Maybe not Polish post, but some civilized post. Or I wake up my kid, I provide breakfast, I commit to driving her to school till 8 a.m. Mission accomplished. Or I leave 2 buckets of paint and brushes, and my repair crew commits to finishing my room until tomorrow. And finally, the example that you like, probably, I break down my backlog to 50 stories. I estimate the duration of my work to 5 sprints. I'm going to add a buffer. And I commit to delivering my Cyberpunk stuff till the end of the year. So before you discover how much the last example is different from the previous 3, the way I understand commitments is a kind of a pattern. It's a promise to achieve certain results, provided some entry criteria are met and I am engaged. So if I identify what I need, like resources, and I have them available, if I get engaged by doing the right actions and behaviors, I will likely fulfill the promise as expected. Of course, even simple commitments go wrong, right? The post office sometimes, does not care so much about the letters. Children are stubborn, and the construction guys are drunk. But still, we have very high degree of control over these commitments. So if we think up front, if we do careful planning, if we exhibit the right behaviors, we will likely succeed with these commitments. However, in complex projects, in complex endeavors, even if we are engaged, even if we do careful planning, even if we have plenty of resources and a lot of money, it often turns out that, not 50 stories, but 70 stories, not 5 sprints, but 6 sprints, not these features, but other features, just a few features, right? So complicated and complex commitments also go wrong naturally. And I don't know how about your situation, but my experience so far is that long-term commitments in IT are usually unable to be 100% delivered. And that results in all the bad things like frustration, disappointment, business impact, financial loss. Yes. So why do we fail with commitments? I think every one of you could come up with your own examples why we fail with commitments. I provided at least 4 things, at least 4 reasons which I saw frequently why commitments fail. So they fail because we think that upfront planning will help. So we are fooling ourselves that we have commitment control. They fail because we underestimate the chance of delay, because we think that a chance of delay and the chance of success is 50-50. It is not. We fail commitments in general because we define our value in a binary way. So it's either delivered or not delivered. It's either working or not working. It's either everything or nothing. And lastly, the way we make contracts with our customers are completely inflexible. And so we have inflexible promises. And so let me elaborate a little bit on these four. Yeah. So speaking of the first one, there is something I could call cognitive bias. Many of the things that I am talking right now, you can find in one of the excellent articles by Joseph Pellerin. So thank you, Joseph. Anyway, I can send you the title or the link in the chat. So speaking of the first one, the reason why we fail with our IT commitments is that we very easily translate daily life experience to software engineering. We think that we will control our commitment success by just a careful planning, by execution, and by engagement, which is not enough. Most of us are unaware of complex domain per Kinefin by Dave Snowden. I'm sure most of you know that, so I don't want to be trivial here. If not, however, I recommend Googling Dave Snowden and his works on complex, complicated, simple, chaotic. There was the fifth one. I have to check it up. Domains. And the message is complex and complicated domains cannot, so handling complex and complicated domains cannot be done the same as we handle simple and I don't know, maybe even complicated, okay? Like the post office stuff. The second reason why we fail our commitments is we underestimate the probability of delay. For some reason, we think that our commitments may speed up or get delayed with the same probability. And this is not true. We underestimate the probability of delay. And again, if you look into Mike Kahn's book, there is an excellent explanation of that fact. Delays in IT, in complex environment, are a lot more probable than getting stuff early. And it's because there is only limited number of things that you can do to speed up your delivery, to speed up your commitment to finish early, and unlimited number of things that can push your commitment beyond schedule. So the odds are not symmetrical, and we often forget about it, and we are happy that we have risks identified, we got project plan, and we got some mathematics confirming that we're good. This is untrue, basically. This is fooling ourselves. Another reason why our commitments struggle is because of how we break down our work backlog. So very, very often our work is success is binary. That is, it's either successful or not successful. Once initiated, our work has to be completed in full. There is no intermediate value in it. It's just done or not done. And until the last little bit is not done, the whole thing doesn't work. So our work backlog is basically not designed to be incremental and not designed to be always valuable. Not designed to be always valuable when the time is up. Not to mention the fact that there is a concept of MVP, the minimum viable product. I've seen cases where MVP was defined as 90% of the work, which is not right. Survey time again. That's the second and last survey. How do I launch it? Hold on a second. I have some problem. Relaunch. I have some problem running this.
Maybe if you publish results for.
Okay, maybe I share results. Okay.
And then it will.
Okay, stop share.
Okay. Or relaunch link, and maybe it's gonna be the second one.
Okay, let's try that. No, it doesn't allow me to do this. Something is wrong with that thing. Yeah, okay, I don't want to struggle with that. The survey was about Agile contracts. So I wanted to ask you about do you experience something called Agile contracts or Agile commitments in your environment? I can launch it offline, so we can check that offline. I wanted to ask you, have you heard, have you seen, or have you experienced something called Agile contracts? Because it's related to the last reason. So the reason why our commitments fail is the way we define our contractual obligations are very inflexible. So success is binary. It's either success or lack of success. Additionally, in traditional contracting, most of the risk is being transferred to the software vendor, that is you or me. So in exchange for a bag of money, the IT company is supposed to take all the risk of a successful delivery or not, just for the bag of money. Often the contractual obligations are defined in a way that any scope change is penalized, and basically scope change is considered a failure, like it or not. You can also experience some extreme ways to commit your software. You probably saw these two extremes. One extreme is that some people say you can't really commit beyond a single sprint or two because it's so complex. And life will show us what will be completed. Deal with it. Handle them, as they say. And the other extreme is very aggressive project management that says, of course, you can precisely commit something long-term. All you need to do is you need to employ a good project manager. You need to do a good math. You need to estimate very precisely, increase your estimation accuracy, and all the fallacies that I heard for the last couple of years. Both of these ways are extreme and probably not realistic. If this is not advertisement, so Łukasz Węgrzyn doesn't even know that he's in this picture. But in Motorola, we had very good experience inviting Łukasz with the trainings to our office back at the time where we could all breathe the same air. So Łukasz came for a series of trainings and meetings in our office. He's one of the most recognized Polish specialists in Agile contracts. And the key message of his trainings was that the modern contracts, they no longer define fixed scope. There is something else that is fixed in those contracts. What is fixed is the procedures for scope change. So the contracts have a very precise definition who, how, and how easily can change scope. Not so much what kind of fixed scope we have to deliver. That's a huge mindset change. So if you're looking for a person to, I don't know, talk to or consult or to invite, I can recommend Łukasz. Again, this is not advertisement. He doesn't even know that. So that's all very depressing. At least when I think of it, it's very depressing. However, there is something we can do. We can take a little step and try to influence our culture. There was a philosopher called Confucius, and he said something very, very wise. He said that fixing a country begins with fixing nomenclature. He has no Instagram account because it was too early for an Instagram. So we have to rely on these pictures. This is him. So if nomenclature is so much important, how about we do this? If we try to replace commitment with forecasts, it may have a few benefits. Forecasts, like, I don't know, weather forecasts or any forecasts, by default are inaccurate. That's what this word stands for. And it's exactly the same inaccurate as IT commitment, but it doesn't promise anything more. I never understood why they advertise forecasts so much in Agile world. I think I now understand it better, because it doesn't promise anything more, and it's the same inaccurate as a commitment. Secondly, using forecast nomenclature may encourage an organization to increase its accuracy over time, to basically discuss frequently, is our forecast accurate or not, or inaccurate, and what we can do to improve its accuracy, or as the time goes by, do we have more details to update our forecast? Commitment, in turn, often encourages toxic discussions. For example, how to deliver something unchanged no matter what. And sometimes up to the point of cheating and fooling people, mocking things up only to make it look good. I think I said enough about Boeing 737 MAX and then about Cyberpunk. So let's leave them. By the way, Cyberpunk, CD Projekt Red company, a few weeks ago, they issued a press release, a strategy update to the press. And they said that they will now invest into Agile approach and they will create cross-functional teams. So I really wonder how they issued that game without doing it. I can provide you a reference from the internet where they state that. So apparently Cyberpunk was delivered with very, very little Agile approach. This is what they say. And if you remember the beginning of the presentation about me sitting in these multi-team planning rooms, what could I do? And what I would like to do the next time I am in these meetings. Unfortunately, the pandemic situation changed that a lot. But what could I do? First of all, I could stop thinking that all the work items I see in this sprint Sudoku are the same. Okay, they have different size, but except for the size, in this board, they are basically the same. They're just work items, like product backlog items. Secondly, I would like to stop the binary commitment game. I would like to stop the way of committing where everything before the buffer is considered committed and signed with blood, and everything beyond the buffer is considered uncommitted. I'm going to elaborate on that a little bit later. I would introduce some kind of delivery risk for my forecast accuracy, and I would spend my time in the planning assessing the delivery risk for my work items. Instead of doing this Sudoku over the sprint grid, trying to fit my work items into empty sprints, I would spend the time in the planning session assessing delivery risks for my work items, or the forecast accuracy, if you will, because that's the same. delivery risk and forecast accuracy in this context is the same. And I would discuss these forecasts, the accuracy of these forecasts with my management, with the management sitting in the room, with the stakeholders willing to help. And if we are unhappy about our forecasts or about our risks, we would spend time discussing them a lot more. That being said, I said that our work items are not identical, and indeed they are not identical. The reason why some of them are delivered and some of them are not delivered in the end is not the pressure for committing, or is not the elapsing of time. It's something that's inside of them. So there are a couple of factors. You can think about your own factors. These are the factors that came to my mind, but you can, in the context of your company, you can think about different factors. There is something in your work items, either backlog items or epics or initiatives, you name them, that makes their delivery forecast different. For example, dependencies. If you have two identical work items, the one that has dependencies will probably be more risky, right? Because your partners will get late, or you forgot about your dependencies. So dependencies complicate the forecasts. Delay history. If you have two work items and one of them has a history of delays, sprint by sprint, you may assume it will delay again, because there is something in it that makes it difficult to complete. The sprint grid position. Your work items that have been planned for the first sprint have a lot bigger chance of completion than the ones that you put to the last sprint. It's completely non-binary, because your team will discover risks early, because they will test it early, and because basically they will learn early about how stuff works. So if you want to increase the probability of completion of some of your work items, you may want to put them early in the sprint grid. Precedentness. If you have two identical work items and one of them is very similar to the ones you did in the past, it will probably be more, it will have more chance to get completed because you did it in the past. Sometimes you're adding just another parameter to the database or something. The knowledge required. If you have two work items and one of them requires the three people in your company who can help about it, it may become a bottleneck and it will have bigger chance of getting delayed. And obviously size, right? So size, stuff that is big probably has lower probability of being completed, but that's fairly obvious. And what I could do with it is I could ask teams, or I could ask the organization to introduce some, what's the right word? Some criteria or some stages of these parameters. So I would say, okay, for our work items, speaking of dependencies, we either have no dependencies, or we have just a few dependencies, or we have many dependencies. Or delay history. It has never delayed, it was once delayed, or it's more than once. Whatever, you name it. What I could do is I could introduce some figures behind those parameters, right? Because we're going to be collecting points here for our work items. So if it doesn't have dependencies, it just scores 1 point. But if it has many dependencies, it will score 10 points. Also, if you think that some of the areas like knowledge or precedentness are especially important in your context, you may want to increase them by an order of magnitude or 2. So instead of 1, you have 100, because it will drive the overall figure a lot more. So in this example, you can try to calculate some kind of risk factor. In this case, it's 680. It tells nothing. But and basically, if you look at the sprint grid, if you look at your forecast board, instead of looking at the binary commitment, you can look at your forecast board in the planning room as a distribution of risk or distribution of forecast accuracy. In this picture here, some work items have low risk, some of them have very high risk, and you see that it doesn't really matter where they are so much. In such planning, then we could discuss, okay, we don't like that these work items here have very high risk, so let's discuss what to do with them to lower that risk. We may want to pull them into earlier sprints, or we can, I don't know, ask some experts for help, or we can break them down, whatever. So if there's one thing I would like to try about shifting the culture, I would like to try that and discontinue doing this, what I call binary commitments. I would like to stop ending a planning meeting with a binary commitment of sure thing, these are the things that we will surely deliver, and 1 millimeter after or 1 day after, no way. These things we will certainly not deliver. This is what I call binary commitment. And personally, I don't like it because I think it's ineffective. So just to summarize, what I try to say here is that it is very difficult to change the commitment culture. And I don't know a company that has completely changed that. However, there are some first steps we can do, or I can do, to try to make it more realistic, more agile. And that's about introducing the idea of forecast, changing the language, offer to the stakeholders some way of quantifying the forecasts, using numbers to express the forecast accuracy, involving the organization into defining the risk factors, the risk areas that are specific for that organization, and in the role of facilitator of a planning meeting, I would certainly provoke conversations on our forecast accuracy, not what's committed, what's not committed so much. However, it's difficult. You have to know that culture changes last. Fingers crossed for everyone who would like to make their first step, including myself. So thank you very much, guys. Let me look at the questions, if there are any. Stop. Veronica, can you see my screen? Is it
Yes, but
visible?
it's quite small.
It's quite small. Okay, that's bad. Let me, is it better?
Yeah, it's much better. Now it's readable.
Okay, Michał Kołtowski, the answer is yes, but I have to do my homework about using Zoom. So yeah, 92% of people were familiar with Cyberpunk, which is I'm happy about it. Paweł says that Cyberpunk is a Polish. What is this? I'm a simple person, so I'm sorry, but I have to Google it up. You got me here. Oh, racja stanu. Paweł, let's take it offline. Yeah, but many Polish people they hoped for a lot, especially after The Witcher 3 success. Yeah, CDPR. Yeah, I'm happy that we discussed about commitment. CDPR pulled a No Man's Sky on us, promised too much, deliver less, and buggy. Yes, No Man's Sky was another game that I think was released a few years ago by a little studio, which also was a disaster upon launch, but the studio managed to fantastically fix it to the best of my knowledge. Some people hope that CDPR will do the same with Cyberpunk. I doubt, but we'll see. Michał Kołtowski loves the stairs. Okay, we all do. Yeah, the second question that I failed to display was, do you experience Agile contracts or Agile commitments in your surrounding? Is your company or your department or your product somehow using Agile way of making promises? Sebastian says that it's the first time hearing that terminology. Sebastian, I assume it's about the Agile contracts or Agile commitments, I presume. Jarek is even more pessimistic about it because Jarek's comment is that it's difficult to see it in practice and it's just only theory. I don't think, Jarek, it's only theory. However, I can understand that many of the IT businesses will struggle or will be basically impossible to adopt to Agile contracts, and especially government and public safety business, where it is very difficult to be flexible. Andrei. Interesting presentation. My reflections regarding focus part of presentation go with risk management in terms of ratio of each factor for crucial and risk. Yeah, I'm not sure how am I supposed to comment on that because I agree. I can only add that, you know, I used to work in waterfall, like it or not. And I only look young, but I'm not so young. So I used to work in waterfall, and personally, I liked some kind of risk management that was present there, and it was part of planning discussions. Obviously, the stupid part was that we tried to predict the risks upfront, and we were basically being very unpleasant for people because of these risks. However, I liked the risk management part of planning. Isn't it more about teams simply overcommit? If the accuracy would change into we are certain we are able to deliver X, we think we'll be able to deliver Y, wouldn't that help? Let me read it again. Sure, I think I understand, Amadeusz. What I'm afraid of is that the things that the team is certain to deliver will be like 15% of the scope, and the management will push for 70 or 80. So the things that we are really certain, it's the minority. Oh, there's a comment. Paweł, racja stanu. Right, thank you. It's more about changing it from binary to more steps. Okay, yeah, I understand it, sure. So instead of saying we will commit, we can still have stages of commitment, like for sure, I don't know, probably or least probably, but still we're going to struggle. We're going to fight for that, if I understand you right. So instead of binary, it will be still discrete, like steps, but more than 2 steps. Jarek adds a comment that, okay, that you haven't got opportunity to meet with real contracts, Agile contracts in my life. Okay, I understand it. When I was on a SAFE conference a few years ago in, I think it was Colorado, or anyway, in the United States, there were people from the representing US government agencies like the Health Service. And they said that back at the time when President Obama was there, the United States government defined some documentation about how to do Agile contracts in a government business. And I even saw some fragments, some pieces of it in the conference. However, I'm not sure how popular it is in the business still. How would it change from commitment? Oh, San Antonio, Piotr, thank you, because we were together with Piotr there. So yeah, what's in San Antonio stays in San Antonio, Piotr. How would change from commitment to forecast help with changing how it works for management? I mean, they will still push for, yeah. Amadeusz, my point about forecast was that this word doesn't promise so much as commitment does. So obviously, yes, management can now chase people for forecasts. This is true. However, you know, I believe that forecast is less oppressive and is less, it doesn't promise so much. So chasing people for forecasts, yes, it's possible, but I believe it will help tune down the overall temperature in a discussion. But essentially, you're right. Essentially, you're right, in my opinion. The management can be the same aggressive and oppressive about forecasts. Thanks. Thank you.